Do you remember the times when it was possible to build a top 1080p PC for €250? Are you more familiar with the shortage of graphics cards and the inflated prices due to mining? Well, I can tell you that the worst is well behind us, and if you're looking for a super top gaming computer for as little money as possible, we could say that YouTube's neural network is working, because it has brought you to this video. In addition to the one I already had, I bought a second computer from China, so you can see from super cheap alternatives that cost €250 to much more respectable options with very good performance and aesthetics, which are closer to €400. Don't miss any details, because these are the definitive cheap gaming PCs for 2023, and I'm going to show you in this video. Want to see a video of us assembling this PC? A sort of updated assembly guide? Blow up this video with likes and leave your comment. If I see more than 500 likes, I promise I'll get that video out and show you how this beast was assembled. I hope this video is what you were looking for, and I wanted to emphasize that it has been possible thanks to your support. If you want to see more videos like this on the channel, it is vitally important that you subscribe, since the vast majority who watch the videos are not subscribed, and bringing relevant content is complicated if our community does not grow in numbers. See also the description to follow us on other networks, such as TikTok or Instagram, and above all, add our Amazon and PC Components affiliate links to your bookmarks. That way, despite paying the same price for your online purchases, you will be contributing directly to this channel. What is the basis for buying a Chinese PC from Aliexpress? Is it dangerous? Do they sell you real working components? The main key to a Chinese PC is the infinite number of Xeon processors that exist. Processors less than 10 years old that were launched for more than €1,500 and can now be bought almost for free. Intel Xeons are server processors, so they have a completely different approach to a desktop processor. What are the differences, and why do I say they are so worthwhile? Because they are super powerful. In this video we are going to test two models, the Xeon E5 2620V3, with 6 cores and 12 threads, with maximum turbo frequencies of 3.2 GHz, and its superior brother, the Xeon E5 2670V3, with 12 cores and 24 threads, and maximum turbo frequencies of 3.1 GHz. A processor launched in 2014 with a starting price of $1,589 and now costing 1/100 of that. Those of you who understand more will have already noticed, yes, AliExpress Xeon processors have a heck of a lot of cores, and the frequencies aren't that high either, something very different from desktop processors. Why is this? It happens because server processors are designed to handle more intensive workloads and multiple tasks simultaneously, while desktop processors are designed for fast single-task performance. In addition, server processors often have additional features to increase their reliability, security, and virtualization capabilities. The good thing is that despite being designed for different things, server processors can be used perfectly well in a home computer. They need a motherboard with socket 2011v3, which would be difficult to obtain here, but which Chinese assemblers continue to market. As I said, these CPUs are capable of withstanding much more extreme loads than the domestic ones. You will not have a computer as fast as a recent Intel or AMD processor, but if we take into account the price, we see that a Xeon CPU combo can cost you less than €80, and it includes the motherboard, the RAM, and the processor itself. Only the motherboard of a current processor can cost you that easily, and adding a low-end processor and RAM the price can triple. This is why these packs are so interesting. There are plenty of Xeon packs on AliExpress, with different processors and components. I have been able to test the Xeon E5 2620V3 and 2670V3, both compatible with DDR4 RAM, which came included and in dual module, so I have 16 GB in dual channel. This issue is important, as we demonstrate in this video. The performance loss by mounting a single module was remarkable. Well, depending on what you want to spend, you have in AliExpress from this pack with the 2620 with 6 cores and 16 GB of RAM in a single module, through a combo with the same processor but with a slightly better board and double module of 8 GB. Then comes the Xeon E5 2660V3, which is the model of 10 cores and 20 threads, keeping 16 GB of RAM in the same board, up to the Xeon E5 2670V3 of 12 cores and 24 threads, with 16 GB of RAM in dual channel. This last one is the combo that I bought for testing. To accompany these Xeon packs, Aliexpress gives us the solution with graphics that are also a few years old, but still perform great. You have models like the 8GB RX 580 that has a beastly price, starting at less than €80, or the 8GB RX 590, which for less than €100, is a graphics card that in certain scenarios was able to stand up to a GTX 1660 or 1660 Super. And beware, these other graphics cards still cost more than €200 today. What is the problem with buying these RX 580 and RX 590 graphics cards on AliExpress? Well, their use. All of them have been used for mining at some point, and I bet some of them have been mining non-stop for the last 2 years. This is not just a detail, as hardware components also have wear and tear, and having them in a huge farm stacked up constantly running at high temperature is far from their ideal environment. This is why they are priced the way they are, and this is also why this PC is not for everyone. We are talking about used components, so there is a risk that they are worn, have defects, and we do not have the warranty of a new component purchased in a store. In terms of performance, you will see that these graphics cards will be giving you very good performance, but are you convinced to buy one knowing the past it has? Do you think it's worth it? Leave it in the comments so we can discuss among all of us. With the main components already awarded, let's move on to look at the rest of the components, where we have even more variants to choose from. I am talking about the case or cabinet, the CPU heatsink, the storage unit, and the power supply. Let's start by reviewing what integrates the PC that you have been watching for much of the video, which has been assembled thanks to Nfortec, with its most top components in value for money. You are going to be shocked with the performance differences between buying these good quality components, and saving the most on lower quality components, although some might think that they have less importance. As a box we have the Nfortec Chino, which comes in black, although you also have it in white. For €60, it has 3 RGB fans included and with very cool effects pre-configured from a button on the box. The qualities have improved a lot in Nfortec, and this case, despite being very light, is very spacious, has an isolated space for the power supply, a wide bottom to sort the cables and close the lid well, and a side panel completely in crystal glass, which reflects more than I would like, but it is very premium. With that open front that integrates 2 fans, the truth is that the airflow is one of the strengths of this case. You will see it later. I would have liked the side to open and close with a handle, as happens in the Nfortec Crater Mini, but well, that feature is not common in this price range. As for CPU heatsink, we have the Nfortec Vela X model, which has 5 copper tubes for cooling, and brings installation brackets for socket 2011 V3, which is the one we need for these Xeon processors. If you miss some RGB, you have the Nfortec Centaurus X heatsink, which gives you the same performance and adds that aesthetic touch. The power supply is the Nfortec Scutum X650W. A power supply with 80+ bronze efficiency certificate, which never hurts, with numerous protections against power outages, overvoltage, etc. It is also semi-modular, so you can connect only the cables you need. Later you will also see the importance of mounting a good quality power supply in a PC. Do not go for the cheapest, be careful with that. Finally, as storage unit, I have mounted a 1TB SATA SSD hard disk that I had at home to perform these tests. You don't have a hard drive, and you need to buy one? Watch without fail this video here, as we compare all types of hard disk available, to see which one performs better, and which one you should buy according to its quality price ratio. I would recommend you to buy a 1TB NVMe SSD, as they're costing around €50, and for that price they're unbeatable. Check first that your motherboard has an M2 port, of course. Be careful, this board does integrate PCI Express Gen 3 lines, so the graphics card will have enough bandwidth and you can take advantage of very fast NVMe SSDs up to 4000 MB/s, but if the board only supports PCI Express Gen 2, you could be losing performance in both graphics and M.2. Visit the page plocuschinas.com if you want to learn about different boards and their features and performance tests. The alternative of cheap components that I propose you, like the first one, has many variants that you can touch. This is the good thing about assembling a PC by parts. In this case we are looking for maximum savings, to be able to make that €250 PC. We are talking about a low-end Mars gaming case, which in the chosen model has a front fan and a rear fan, but has the space for the power supply at the top of the case, something that is not optimal. Neither are its qualities, but it is to be expected for the price. The heatsink is also several steps above, so we could expect much worse temperatures in the graphics card and processor in the case of this configuration. The power supply is a Knox Urano 650W, with 80+ bronze certificate. A source that is not bad at all honestly, and that I have recommended quite a lot, as it has very good value for money. I had a 550W AeroCool in the cheap Chinese PC, but I have changed it because that power could be scarce, especially for the 8GB RX 590, which I couldn't run it with that supply when the PC was under a lot of load. Finally, in terms of storage, the minimum would be to pull with a 480GB SATA SSD, which would already give you space to install the operating system and several games. In the future, you would always have the option to expand that storage. Let's finally put these PCs to the test, starting with the newest option, the one that integrates the Xeon 2670V3 pack, with 12 cores, 16GB of RAM, the RX 590 and Nfortec components. In a synthetic benchmark like Cinebench, we can see how this Xeon performs, which ends the test with a multi-core performance equal to the i5-12450H, which is a laptop processor of the last generation, which we tested recently in this video that I leave here. I don't think it's a bad result, although we must take into account that this Xeon has 12 cores, and the i5 had 8, and 4 of them are designed for efficiency. In a home PC, single-core performance is usually more important, and as we have said, this is not the strong point of the Xeon. And beware, the Cinebench is a super demanding test for the processor, as it puts it to work at 100%. Well, in this test, with the case and the Nfortec heatsink, the processor has been around 40 to 42 at all times, a real barbarity of data, considering that the ambient temperature was about 20 degrees, and the processor had been at 100% for 10 minutes. Components like these of higher quality make the difference, as you will see later on. If we go with video games, we can see how in Fortnite this PC is a marvel. With competitive features in 1080p, you will need a 144Hz monitor to take full advantage of its performance. The average has remained well above 100 FPS, and it is especially noteworthy that the graphics is all the time working at 100%, which is a very good sign, and tells us that we do not have an extreme bottleneck between processor and graphics. That with a better processor we would get more FPS? Well, we will check it soon in a new video, so subscribe to the channel without fail, and activate the little bell to not miss that video. If we move on to Cyberpunk 2077, let's run the integrated benchmark, with the qualities on medium and 1080p. The results are not bad at all, with over 40 FPS on average, considering how lousy the optimization is in this game. You would also have the possibility of activating Fidelity FX Super Resolution to be able to get close to 60 FPS possibly, without hardly noticing a loss of image quality. The next test is on Battlefield V, another shooter that we have set at high qualities and 1080p, to again see super good results. Again, without activating scaling technologies like AMD's FSR, we are already at 60 FPS. To some it may seem a low number, but lowering the qualities to medium or activating the FSR, you could already have a noticeable increase in the number of FPS. It should be noted that the stability and performance of this PC with Nfortec components has been excellent. Zero problems of the source, and both the graphics and especially the processor have worked excellently. The following benchmark is the integrated benchmark of GTA 5, which we have configured with high qualities, X4 filters and 1080p. The average in the entire benchmark has remained at 100 FPS, although if we remove the black scenes where the counter is triggered, we could say that the game with this configuration is around 70 to 80 FPS fairly consistently. Finally, a very magical benchmark that we have recently added, the Hogwarts Legacy benchmark. With medium quality and 1080p resolution we suffer a bit in some areas, but we get a super top average of almost 50 FPS, which for this type of AAA game seems to me more than correct. As soon as you activate FSR you could even raise the quality a bit or even exceed 60 FPS. This €400 PC has performed very well indeed, but let's see what the Chinese PC I built a couple of years ago can do in comparison. In this computer we have the E5 2620V 3, 16GB of RAM and the RX 574GB. The heatsink is also from Aliexpress, the case is an AeroCool Bolt Mini, and the power supply is an AeroCool 550W 80+ bronze. Right off the bat, we see how in the multi-core test this 2620 lags far behind the 2670. As it has half the number of cores, the difference in performance is very visible. But be careful, despite having a much lower performance, this processor has been running at a constant 82 to 83 during the 10 minutes of the test. Twice what we saw in the other PC. But how can this happen? Well, this is what happens when you combine a case with a closed front and no fans with a heatsink from Aliexpress with low cooling capacity. The result is very poor, and comes to show that having a case with good airflow, in addition to a good heatsink, is very important if you want to have a stable and cool PC. In games, we see how this PC also suffers more. In all of them we have kept the graphic configuration to see the direct comparison, and the impact on the average FPS. In Fortnite the average drops to 110 FPS, so it's still very top, but it's still 24 FPS below the other PC. In this case, as in both we exceed 100, it doesn't seem very relevant either, so let's move on to other games. In Cyberpunk 2077 the average stays at 33, so we are 8 FPS down. Again, it doesn't seem like a big number, but in percentage we are talking about a 20% difference, and at these FPS levels, each FPS is much more noticeable, and being in the 40s zone is much safer and more stable than being bordering on 30. The Battlefield 5 I do not explain it, because the final result has been 54 FPS on average, which leaves it only 6 FPS below the RX 590, which implies a 10% in percentage. It seems very little to me, although it could be due to the gameplay itself, since it is impossible to make it the same in both cases when we talk about an online game, even if it is the same game mode and the same map. The integrated GTA 5 benchmark is again much more stable, and in this case it is left with an average of 87 FPS taking into account the black scenes, although the real average removing these scenes would have meant an even greater percentage differential, which would favor the more powerful PC with the RX 590. Finally, the Hogwarts Legacy once again gives us results that are still super good, with an average of 43 FPS, which is not far behind the average of the RX 590, which was around 50. What are the keys to each option? Well, I must say that the RX 590 should have performed better, and we will see if the processor or other components have also limited its performance in some way. Stay tuned to what is coming, because soon we will test this graphics on my personal PC, with an i5 12400, 16 GB at 3200 MHz and all the latest. Meanwhile, given the performance of the 4GB RX 570, I estimate that the difference between an RX 588GB and an RX 590 could be around 5% approximately, so given the price differences, I think that between the €250 cheap PC that I have left you in the description, and the €400 PC of the description, you will not have a justifiable difference in performance. What you do get is stability, better performance, better temperatures, and a much more top aesthetics. In the end, you must consider if the €250 option can work for you, or if you prefer to invest a little more to accompany your Chinese PC with good components, or even if this Chinese PC with used components is not your thing, and you prefer to buy a new and more durable PC, even if you have to invest a little more upfront. If this is the case, you have the playlist I have left you with all the latest updated quotes. I'm sure those videos will help you a lot too. If you have come this far, I hope you have learned new things, and as I said, if you want to see me assembling this PC, remember that we are asking for 500 likes on this video. While you're at it, you can also subscribe, it doesn't cost anything. And with this, I'll leave you for today. See you in the next video. See you next time, bye.